October 17, 1944. The air in the Hurtgen forest tasted like death. Cold, metallic, thick with the stench of wet earth and cordite. Fog curled through the blackened pines like phantoms, clinging to the boots of American soldiers as they moved in silence through the suffocating gloom. Every breath came shallow. Every footstep, hesitant. Somewhere beyond the trees, the Germans waited, dug in, invisible, lethal. Private Samuel Sam Hartley crouched behind a shattered oak, his fingers gripping the worn wooden stock of his rifle. Not the sleek M1 Garand that his brothers-in-arms carried. Not the semi-automatic marvel that had become the backbone of American infantry firepower. No. Sam held a Springfield Model 1903. A bolt-action relic from another war. A grandfather's weapon. A museum piece. And they never let him forget it. Still hauling that antique, Hartley? Corporal Jimmy Russo had sneered back at the supply depot, flicking ash from his cigarette. What's next? You gonna charge 'em with a bayonet and a prayer? Laughter rippled through the platoon. Even Lieutenant Barnes had smirked, shaking his head as he checked his own Garand. You're gonna get yourself killed with that thing, Private. One shot, then you're fumbling with the bolt while Jerry empties a clip into your chest. Sam said nothing. He never did. He just ran his thumb along the rifle's cold steel, feeling the familiar grooves, the weight balanced perfectly in his hands. This wasn't just a rifle. It was an extension of his soul, a piece of the Tennessee mountains where he'd grown up hunting deer before dawn, where his grandfather had taught him to breathe between heartbeats, to see wind in the sway of branches, to kill with a single shot because ammunition was precious and pride demanded perfection. But in the chaos of modern war, in the mechanized hell of 1944, precision seemed quaint. Outdated. Laughable. The Hurtgen forest didn't care about anyone's pride. The 28th Infantry Division had been grinding through these cursed woods for weeks, and the trees devoured men like a hungry beast. Machine gun nests hidden in the undergrowth. Artillery shells screaming through the canopy, detonating in airbursts that shredded flesh and splintered bone. Mines buried beneath the carpet of wet leaves. And snipers, oh God, the snipers. German marksmen who turned the forest into a killing gallery, invisible executioners who could put a bullet through your eye from 300 yards while you never even heard the shot. Sam's platoon had lost 9 men in 2 days. Now, on this fog-shrouded morning, they were moving again. Pushing toward a cluster of stone farmhouses marked on the lieutenant's map as Objective Wolf. Intelligence said it was lightly defended. Intelligence was usually wrong. The column moved through the trees in staggered formation, weapons raised, eyes scanning shadows that seemed to breathe and shift. Sam moved near the rear, his Springfield slung across his back, ignored as always. The other men clustered around the bar gunner, around Russo's Thompson, around Barnes's steady commands. Nobody looked to the hillbilly with the bolt action. Then the world exploded. The first burst of milligram 42 fire ripped through the column like a buzzsaw, the distinctive tearing sound unmistakable, 1,200 rounds per minute, Hitler's Zipper, the deadliest machine gun on earth. Men screamed and dove for cover as the forest erupted in chaos. Muzzle flashes strobed from a concealed position ahead, bullets chewing through tree bark, kicking up geysers of mud and pine needles. Contact front. Contact front. Barnes roared, his voice barely audible over the cacophony. Suppress that gun. Somebody suppress that goddamn gun. The bar gunner tried. He rose from behind a fallen log, his weapon bucking in his hands, firing in controlled bursts toward the German position. He got off maybe 10 rounds before the milligram 42 found him. The bullet stitched across his chest in a diagonal line, spinning him like a marionette with cut strings. He collapsed without a sound, his body crumpling into the mud. Panic rippled through the platoon. Men fired blindly into the fog, burning through ammunition, hitting nothing. The German machine gun continued its relentless rhythm, keeping every American head pinned down, choking off any chance of advance or retreat. Sam pressed himself flat against the base of a thick pine, his heart hammering against his ribs. Around him, chaos. Screaming. The wet crunch of bullets finding flesh. Radio static crackling as someone tried desperately to call for artillery support that wouldn't arrive in time. He closed his eyes. Breathed. One breath in. One breath out. His grandfather's voice echoed through the years. The world can be ending around you, boy, but inside that breath, inside that one perfect moment, there's stillness. Find it. Live in it. Then squeeze. Sam opened his eyes and unslung the Springfield. The other men were too panicked to notice. Russo was cursing, jamming a fresh magazine into his Thompson with shaking hands. Barnes was screaming coordinates into the radio handset. Nobody saw the hillbilly with the old rifle shift position, moving low and smooth through the underbrush, working his way to the left flank where the forest thinned slightly. 70 yards ahead, barely visible through the fog and smoke, Sam saw it, a dark shape behind the stuttering muzzle flash of the milligram 42. Not much. Just the outline of a helmet, the curve of a shoulder behind the gun's armored shield. Most men would have fired. Prayed. Hoped. Sam didn't hope. He pressed his cheek against the Springfield stock, feeling the cold wood against his skin. His breathing slowed. His vision narrowed. The chaos faded into a distant roar, unimportant, irrelevant. There was only the target. Only the shot. The German gunner shifted slightly, adjusting his aim. Sam's finger rested gently on the trigger. Breathe out. Half. Hold. The Springfield cracked, a single, sharp report almost lost in the larger symphony of battle. The German machine gun fell silent. For a moment, nobody understood what had happened. The sudden absence of that terrible hammering fire felt surreal, impossible. Men kept their heads down, waiting for it to resume. It didn't. The hell? Russo muttered, lifting his head cautiously. Sam was already working the bolt, smooth, practiced, mechanical. The spent casing ejected in a glittering arc. A fresh round slid into the chamber with a metallic click. He shifted his aim slightly right, where a second German soldier was scrambling toward the abandoned machine gun, trying to take over the weapon. Another crack. The German jerked backward, his hands flying up, and tumbled out of sight. Now men were noticing. Who the hell is shooting? Barnes shouted, scanning the tree line. Sam fired again. A third German, this one trying to drag the machine gun back into cover, dropped his end of the weapon and collapsed. 3 shots. 3 kills. 15 seconds. And Sam Hartley was just getting started. The fog began to lift as the morning wore on, revealing the true nightmare of their position. The farmhouses of Objective Wolf sat atop a low rise, surrounded by open ground, a killing field. And dug in around those buildings, the Germans had prepared a slaughter. Not a light defensive position. A fortress. Barnes stared through his binoculars, his face pale. Jesus Christ. There's at least a full platoon up there. Maybe more. We need to pull back. Call in armor support. We don't have time, the captain's voice crackled over the radio. Regiment wants that position by nightfall. You push forward or you explain why to the colonel. It was a death sentence delivered in bureaucratic language. The platoon looked at each other with the hollow eyes of men who knew they were being asked to die for map coordinates that would be forgotten by history. Sam checked his ammunition. 43 rounds remaining in his pouches. He'd need every single one. Hartley. He looked up. Lieutenant Barnes was standing over him, the mockery gone from his face, replaced by something harder. Something desperate. You made those shots. Back there. Through the fog. Yes, sir. Can you do it again? Sam looked toward the farmhouses, calculating distances, wind, angles of approach. His grandfather's lessons had been brutal and unforgiving. Shoot a deer in the heart at 400 yards or go hungry. There was no room for second place in the mountains. No participation medals in survival. I can try, sir. Barnes nodded slowly. Then he turned to the platoon. Listen up. Hartley's going to find positions and start picking off their gun crews. When he creates an opening, we move fast and we move hard. Understood. Russo spat into the mud. We're trusting our lives to the guy with the grandpa gun? Sam met his eyes. Said nothing. Barnes's voice dropped to a growl. You got a better idea, Corporal? No? Then shut your mouth and get ready to move. The plan was insane. Suicidal. And absolutely their only chance. Sam moved forward alone, crawling through the wet undergrowth, his Springfield cradled in his arms. Behind him, the platoon waited, their fate resting on the shoulders of the man they'd mocked, the soldier they'd dismissed, the hillbilly with the old-fashioned rifle. He reached a small depression in the ground, a natural firing position with clear sight lines toward the farmhouses. He settled in, feeling the cold mud seep through his uniform, and began to scan the German positions through his rifle's iron sights. Movement. Left window, second floor. A German officer with binoculars. Sam's finger found the trigger. The Springfield spoke. The officer's head snapped back, the binoculars tumbling from his hands. Before the body hit the floor, Sam was already working the bolt, already searching for the next target. This was going to be a long 3 days. The first kill was always the easiest. The enemy didn't know you were there, didn't know death was watching through iron sights from 300 yards away. After the first shot, everything changed. They knew a marksman was hunting them. They became cautious, paranoid, dangerous. Sam worked the bolt and chambered another round, his eyes never leaving the farmhouse windows. Seconds ticked by. 10. 20. The German defenders were reacting, pulling back from exposed positions, shouting warnings to each other in sharp, guttural syllables that carried across the morning air, but fear made men careless. A soldier ran across the gap between buildings, trying to reach a stone wall that would give better cover. He moved fast, maybe he thought speed would save him. Sam led him by 2 feet, accounting for movement, distance, the slight crosswind pushing from the west. The Springfield cracked. The German's legs folded mid-stride, and he tumbled into the mud, his rifle clattering away. 2 down. Behind Sam, he heard Lieutenant Barnes on the radio, "We have effective suppression on the objective. Preparing to advance." But the Germans weren't beaten. Not even close. A new sound cut through the morning, the distinctive thunk of a mortar tube. Sam's blood turned to ice. He rolled left just as the first mortar round shrieked down, detonating 30 yards behind him in a fountain of earth and shrapnel. Then another. Another. The Germans were walking their fire toward his position, trying to silence the invisible marksman who'd already killed 2 of their men. Sam low-crawled through the underbrush, moving fast, relocating before the next barrage could find him. Shrapnel hissed through the air above his head, hot metal fragments that could shred a man to ribbons. He pressed himself flat into a shallow ravine as another explosion rocked the earth, close enough that the concussion wave slammed into his chest like a physical blow. Dirt rained down on his helmet. His ears rang. But his hand stayed steady. He found a new position, a cluster of rocks near a destroyed farmhouse foundation, and settled in again. The Germans would think he'd been killed or driven off by the mortars. They'd get confident again. Sloppy. Sam waited. Patience was a weapon, too. Through the drifting smoke, he saw a German machine gun crew setting up in the ground floor window of the central farmhouse, the same position they'd been firing from before. They clearly believed the sniper threat was neutralized. The gunner was laughing about something, his face visible for just a moment as he adjusted the milligram 42's tripod. Sam put a bullet through his throat. The gunner collapsed backward, and the assistant gunner scrambled to take his place, a fatal mistake born of training and discipline. They'd been taught that the gun must always be manned, must always keep firing. Admirable. Suicidal. Sam killed him before he could pull the charging handle. 4 down. They're falling back from the northern windows. Russo's voice carried across the field, electric with disbelief. He's actually doing it. Hartley's clearing the damn position. Barnes didn't waste the opportunity. First squad, advanced by fire teams. Second squad, suppressive fire on the southern building. Move, move, move. The platoon surged forward in a ragged line, firing as they ran, covering each other in textbook infantry tactics. They covered 50 yards before the German defenders recovered enough to respond, and by then it was too late. The Americans were among the outbuildings, using the stone walls as cover, closing the distance. But Sam's work wasn't finished. A German NCO appeared in a second-floor window, barking orders, trying to rally his men. Sam saw the pistol in his hand, saw him pointing toward the advancing Americans, organizing a counterattack. The Springfield barked. The NCO's jaw exploded in a spray of red, and he vanished from the window. 5. The battle raged for another hour, close quarters, brutal, desperate. Sam continued to fire from his position, picking off Germans who tried to reinforce the farmhouses, who tried to set up interlocking fields of fire, who tried to bring order to the chaos. Each shot was calculated. Each bullet, precious. The Springfield's bolt worked like a mechanical heartbeat. Crack, click click, crack. By the time the last German defender threw down his rifle and stumbled out with his hands raised, Sam had fired 37 rounds. Every single one had mattered. Lieutenant Barnes found him as the platoon was securing the objective, his uniform caked in mud and cordite, his face streaked with sweat despite the cold. The lieutenant's expression was complicated, respect mixed with something that might have been shame. Hartley. Report. Sam stood, slinging the Springfield. 7 confirmed kills, sir. Possibly 2 more I couldn't verify. 7. Barnes shook his head slowly. You cleared this entire position with 7 shots. 9, sir. 2 misses. Wind was tricky. A laugh bubbled up from somewhere in Barnes's chest, half hysterical. 9 shots. Christ. The bar boys burned through 300 rounds and didn't hit a damn thing. Russo approached, his Thompson hanging loose in his hands, his earlier mockery completely absent. He looked at Sam like he was seeing him for the first time. "That was? I mean, how the hell did you?" "Practice," Sam said simply. But it was more than practice. It was a lifetime of hunting to survive, of making every shot count because your family went hungry if you missed. It was the weight of his grandfather's lessons, carried across an ocean to a different kind of mountain, a different kind of prey. It was the knowledge that precision mattered, that in a world of mass-produced warfare and industrial slaughter, one man with perfect aim could still change the outcome of a battle. They held Objective Wolf for the rest of the day, fortifying positions, treating wounded, counting the cost. 3 Americans dead. 7 wounded. 12 Germans killed, 6 captured. Sam cleaned his rifle in silence, running the cleaning rod through the barrel with methodical care, his fingers performing the ritual that kept the weapon alive. Around him, men who'd mocked him that morning now gave him space, not with hostility, but with a kind of cautious reverence. That night, huddled in a captured German bunker while rain drummed against the concrete roof, Russo offered Sam a cigarette. "Don't smoke," Sam said. "Yeah. Figured." Russo lit his own, the match flare briefly illuminating his face. "Listen, about what I said before. About your rifle. I was. Forget it." "No, I mean, we all thought," Russo struggled for words. "We thought firepower was everything. Volume of fire. Suppression. But you out there today, it was like you knew exactly where to shoot. Like you could see things we couldn't." Sam looked up from his cleaning. "I just see what's there, Corporal. Most people, they look at things. I was taught to look into them. See the patterns. The way men move when they're scared versus when they're confident. The angle of a helmet that means someone's about to peek around a corner. Wind direction from how smoke drifts. It's all information. Your grandfather teach you that. He taught me that every bullet costs something. Can't afford to waste them. So you learn to make them count." Sam reassembled the bolt mechanism, his hands moving with practiced ease. "This rifle? It's not old-fashioned. It's honest. 1 shot, 1 kill. No pretending. No spray and pray. Just you, the target, and the truth of whether you're good enough." Russo nodded slowly, taking a long drag from his cigarette. "We got word from regiment. They want us to push deeper into the forest tomorrow. Another set of objectives. More farmhouses. More Germans. Then I'll need more ammunition. You'll get it." Russo stood, crushing his cigarette under his boot. "Whatever you need, Hartley. You just saved all our asses today. The lieutenant's putting you in for a commendation." Sam said nothing. Commendations didn't mean much in the Hurtgen forest, where the trees ate medals and glory alike. What mattered was the next day. The next target. The next shot. He finished cleaning the Springfield and ran his hand along its stock one more time, feeling the grain of the wood, the weight of history. This rifle had been born in 1918, had maybe seen service in the last war. Now, 26 years later, it was teaching a new generation that sometimes the old ways still worked. That sometimes precision trumped volume. That sometimes one man with perfect aim was worth 100 with automatic weapons. Tomorrow would test that theory again. The rain continued through the night, turning the forest floor into a swamp. Sam slept in shifts, the Springfield within arm's reach, and dreamed of Tennessee mountains where the only enemy was winter and the only war was against hunger. October 18, 1944. Dawn. The second day began with artillery, German 105mm shells screaming out of the gray sky, pounding the American positions with methodical fury. The bunker shook with each impact, dust cascading from the concrete ceiling, and somewhere outside, a man was screaming for a medic with the kind of desperation that meant he wouldn't make it. Sam crouched against the wall, the Springfield across his knees, and waited for the barrage to end. This wasn't random. The Germans knew they'd lost Objective Wolf, knew a sniper had torn apart their defense. Now they were coming to take it back. The shelling lasted 20 minutes, an eternity of howling steel and thunder. When it finally stopped, the silence was almost worse. Sam could hear his own heartbeat, the ragged breathing of men preparing to die. "They're coming," Lieutenant Barnes said quietly, peering through a firing slit. "Across the eastern field. Full platoon, maybe more." Sam moved to the window and raised the Springfield. The fog had returned with the dawn, thick and clinging, reducing visibility to less than 100 yards. Through the swirling gray, he could see shapes moving. German infantry advancing in staggered formation, using every scrap of cover, professional and disciplined. These weren't the green recruits they'd faced yesterday. These were veterans. Hold fire until they're in range, Barnes ordered. Conserve ammunition. Make every shot. The Springfield cracked, interrupting him. 200 yards out, a German officer clutched his chest and fell. Count, Barnes finished weakly. Sam worked the bolt. Found another target, a soldier carrying a Panzerfaust, the deadly German anti-tank weapon that could just as easily obliterate a bunker. The man was crouched behind a fallen tree, preparing to fire. Crack. The Panzerfaust carrier slumped forward, the weapon and fired. Now the rest of the platoon opened up, M1 Garans firing in their distinctive 8-round ping, the Thompson submachine guns chattering, the replacement bar gunner sweeping bursts across the field. The German advance staggered under the weight of fire, men diving for cover, their assault broken before it truly began. But they didn't retreat. Smoke grenades detonated across the field, pumping thick white clouds that merged with the fog, creating an impenetrable wall. The Americans fired blind into the smoke, hoping, praying. Sam held his fire. Wasting ammunition on ghosts was a rookie mistake. He watched. Waited. There, a shadow moving left, trying to flank around the bunker. Sam tracked it, patient, letting the figure emerge from the smoke just enough. The Springfield spoke. The shadow fell and didn't move again. Left flank. Watch your left flank. Barnes shouted, directing fire toward where Sam had just killed another German. The platoon adjusted, pouring rounds into the smoke, and somewhere in that white hell, men were screaming. The assault broke. The Germans pulled back, dragging their wounded, leaving 4 bodies in the mud. Sam had accounted for 3 of them. The rest of the platoon, firing hundreds of rounds collectively, had managed 1 confirmed kill. Russo stared at him. How? How the hell do you see through smoke? You don't see through it, Sam said, ejecting an empty casing. You see the shapes it makes when something moves in it. The way it swells different. You watch for the patterns that don't belong. It sounded simple when he said it. It wasn't. The Germans tried again an hour later, a probing attack from a different angle, testing the defenses. Sam killed the point man and the squad leader in rapid succession, and the attack melted away before it developed. Then again at noon, a more serious push with machine gun support. Sam identified the ~42 position by its muzzle flash and put 2 rounds through the weapon's firing slit, silencing it. The assault collapsed. By mid-afternoon, the Germans had stopped trying. They're afraid of you, Barnes said, almost wonderingly. They're actually afraid to attack because of 1 man with a bolt-action rifle. Sam didn't respond. He was counting his remaining ammunition. 26 rounds left. If the Germans came again in force, he'd run dry before he could stop them. But they didn't come. Instead, as the afternoon shadows lengthened, a new threat emerged. Russo spotted it first, a glint of glass in the tree line, 500 yards northeast. Sniper. We got a German sniper out there. The platoon ducked low, suddenly vulnerable. A good German marksman with a scoped rifle could pick them off one by one, and there was no cover from a shooter at that distance. Barnes cursed, reaching for the radio to call for artillery support. Belay that, Sam said quietly. Barnes turned. What? His mine. Hartley, that's over 500 yards, and he's got a scope. You're outgunned. Sam checked his rifle one more time, then moved to a different firing position, a pile of rubble that gave him a slightly elevated angle. Not outgunned, sir. Just out-equipped. There's a difference. The Springfield didn't have a scope. Just iron sights, a simple notch and post, primitive by modern standards. Most men couldn't reliably hit a man-sized target past 300 yards with irons. Most men weren't Sam Hartley. He settled into position, controlling his breathing, his entire world shrinking to the distant tree line. 500 yards. A shot most people would consider impossible with this weapon. But Sam had taken deer at 600 in the Tennessee mountains, where a miss meant going hungry and a wounded animal was a sin against nature. The German sniper fired. The bullet cracked past Sam's head, missing by inches, and someone behind him yelped in surprise. Sam didn't flinch. He'd seen the muzzle flash. Knew exactly where the German was now. Hidden in the crook of a large tree, partially concealed by branches, using the fog as additional cover. A perfect position. Almost perfect. Sam calculated wind, southwest, maybe 8 miles per hour. Distance, 520 yards by his estimation. Drop, significant, maybe 3 feet at this range. The target was partially obscured, only a small portion of his body visible between branches. One shot. That's all he'd get. After that, the German would relocate, and they'd be in a deadly game of cat and mouse that could last for hours and cost American lives. Sam's finger caressed the trigger. Breathe. The world fell away. The war fell away. There was only the rifle, the target, and the space between. Hold. The German sniper shifted slightly, adjusting his scope. Squeeze. The Springfield roared. 520 yards away, through fog and branches and impossible odds, the bullet found its mark. The German sniper jerked once, then tumbled from his perch, his rifle falling separately, both landing in the mud with finality. The platoon erupted in cheers. Sam simply worked the bolt and chambered another round, his face expressionless. That night, word of the shot spread through the entire company. 500 yards. Iron sights. One shot. Officers came to see the hillbilly with the old rifle, to verify the story, to measure the distance with rangefinders and confirm it was true. It was true. Captain Morrison, the company commander, crouched beside Sam in the bunker. Son, I'm transferring you to battalion sniper detail. You're wasted in a rifle platoon. Respectfully, sir, I'd rather stay with my platoon. Morrison frowned. This isn't a request, Private. You're the best marksman I've seen in 20 years of service. You belong. I belong with my platoon, sir, Sam repeated, his voice quiet but firm. These men need me. Transfer me, and you're just putting me with other snipers who already know what they're doing. Here, I can make a real difference. Morrison studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right. You stay. But you're getting a field promotion to corporal. And headquarters wants daily reports on your kills. I'm not keeping score, sir. The army is. After Morrison left, Russo sat down beside Sam, shaking his head in disbelief. You turned down a cushy sniper posting. Most guys would kill for that. Hot meals, better positions, real recognition. Sam was cleaning his rifle again, always cleaning, always maintaining. Snipers work alone or in pairs. Who'd watch your back if I left? Russo had no answer for that. The night passed quietly, but sleep was hard. Sam knew the next day would bring something worse. The Germans were learning, adapting. They knew about him now. Knew that advancing in daylight against Objective Wolf was suicide as long as the American sniper was alive. Tomorrow, they'd come prepared. Tomorrow, Sam's accuracy would face its ultimate test. October 19, 1944. 0530 hours. The attack came before dawn. Not with artillery this time, that would have given too much warning. Instead, it came with silence and fog and the soft crunch of boots in wet leaves. German Fallschirmjäger, paratroopers, the elite of the Wehrmacht's infantry. 40 men, moving like ghosts through the pre-dawn darkness, infiltrating to within 50 yards of the American position before anyone realized they were there. The first warning Sam had was the distinctive crack thump of a stick grenade detonating against the bunker wall. Then the night exploded in muzzle flashes and screaming. Contact! Contact close! Barnes was shouting, firing his pistol at shadows that moved too fast, too skilled. These weren't regular infantry. These were killers. Sam rolled out of his sleeping position, the Springfield already in his hands, and moved to the firing slit. The darkness was total, broken only by the strobe-like chaos of weapons fire. Through the confusion, he could see German soldiers moving in coordinated pairs, suppressing American positions while their partners advanced. Textbook shock assault tactics. A Fallschirmjäger appeared at the bunker entrance, his MP-40 submachine gun raised. Russo shot him 3 times in the chest with his Thompson, and the German fell backward, but 2 more were right behind him. The bunker interior became a screaming melee of close-quarters violence. Knives, bayonets, rifle butts, men killing each other at arm's length. Sam couldn't risk shooting in the confined space, too much chance of hitting friendlies. He reversed his grip on the Springfield and drove the stock into a German's face with savage force, felt bone crunch, then spun and bayoneted another soldier who was grappling with one of the American privates. Fall back! Barnes screamed. Fall back to secondary positions. The platoon retreated in fighting withdrawal, giving ground meter by bloody meter. Sam covered their movement, firing from the hip at point-blank range, none of his careful precision now, just brutal close-range killing. The Springfield cracked again and again, each shot a thunderclap in the confined space. They made it to the secondary bunker, a smaller position 50 yards back, and immediately the Germans adjusted their assault, flowing around the abandoned position like water, pressing forward with relentless professionalism. We can't hold here. Russo shouted over the chaos. There's too many of them. Barnes was bleeding from a head wound, his face a mask of blood. Regiment says no retreat. We hold or we die here. Sam looked at the tactical situation with cold clarity. The Germans had momentum, surprise, and numbers. In another 10 minutes, they'd overrun this position too, and the entire platoon would be wiped out. Unless someone changed the equation. I need to get outside, Sam said. Barnes stared at him. That's suicide. They're everywhere. That's why it'll work. They won't expect it. Sam was already moving, checking his ammunition. 18 rounds left. Keep their attention on this bunker. Give me 2 minutes. 2 minutes to do what? My job. Sam slipped out through a shell hole in the rear wall before Barnes could stop him, melting into the pre-dawn darkness. The world outside was a nightmare of smoke and shadows, tracer rounds cutting red lines through the fog, grenades detonating in orange flashes. German voices shouted commands, coordinating their assault. Sam moved like a ghost through his grandfather's woods, silent and invisible, circling wide around the German positions. They were focused on the bunker, on the Americans trapped inside, confident in their numerical superiority. They'd forgotten the most basic rule of warfare: never assume you know where all the enemy is. He found a position 30 yards behind the German assault line, a small depression in the ground that gave him a perfect angle on their rear. They'd left no security there. Why would they? The Americans were all pinned down ahead. Sam settled into a prone shooting position and began to work. The first shot killed the German officer directing the assault, identifiable by his peaked cap and the way others looked to him for orders. He went down without a sound, and for several seconds, nobody noticed. Sam worked the bolt. The second shot took the squad leader who tried to assume command, a sergeant with Iron Cross ribbons on his chest. He collapsed mid-sentence, his orders dying with him. Now they noticed. Confusion rippled through the German assault. Soldiers spun around, trying to identify where the shots were coming from, their careful coordination fracturing. Sam used that moment of chaos to fire 3 more shots in rapid succession. Bolt, aim, fire, bolt, aim, fire, killing the Fallschirmjäger who'd been preparing to throw grenades into the American position. The German assault stalled, men diving for cover, their attack momentum evaporating as they tried to defend against a threat from their rear. In the bunker, Barnes recognized the opportunity. Counterattack. Now. Move, move, move. The Americans surged out of their position, catching the Germans between 2 fires. What had been a coordinated assault became a confused melee, and in close quarters chaos, the advantage shifted. American M1 Garand fired as fast as men could pull triggers. Thompson submachine guns carved bloody paths through the darkness. And through it all, Sam continued firing. Not the careful, calculated shots of a sniper now, rapid combat shooting, trusting his instincts, his muscle memory, the 10,000 hours of practice that made the rifle an extension of his body. He fired until the Springfield's magazine was empty, then reloaded with fingers that didn't shake despite the adrenaline flooding his system. The German assault broke. The Fallschirmjäger, elite as they were, couldn't fight on 2 fronts against an enemy they couldn't see. They retreated in good order, professional to the end, carrying their wounded, but leaving 8 dead on the field. Sam had killed 5 of them in less than 90 seconds. As dawn finally broke over the Hurtgen forest, painting the fog with pale gold light, the platoon stood among the bodies and the wreckage, breathing hard, realizing they were still alive. Barnes found Sam reloading his rifle with methodical care, his hands steady despite having just turned the tide of a battle single-handedly. You just saved the entire platoon, Barnes said quietly. Just did my part, sir. Your part. Barnes laughed, a sound edged with hysteria. Hartley, you killed 14 German soldiers in 3 days. 14. Some guys go through the entire war without that many confirmed kills. Sam said nothing. Numbers didn't matter. The math was simpler than that, his brothers were alive. That was the only score worth keeping. Russo approached, his face blackened with powder residue and spattered with blood that wasn't his. He held out his hand. I owe you my life. We all do. Sam shook his hand. We're even. You kept them off me in the bunker. That's not the same and you know it. Russo glanced at the Springfield. That old-fashioned rifle. I'll never mock another man's weapon choice again. Hell, I'll never mock anything again. The German bodies were searched for intelligence and then buried in hasty graves. Among the dead was the officer Sam had killed first, a Hauptmann, a captain, with 14 years of service ribbons on his tunic. A professional soldier who'd probably fought in Poland, France, Russia. He'd survived all those campaigns only to be killed by a Tennessee hillbilly with a rifle from 1918. War didn't care about experience or reputation. Only accuracy. By mid-morning, relief forces arrived, fresh troops moving up to take over the position. The 28th Division was being pulled out of the Hurtgen Forest for rest and refit. They'd bled enough. As the platoon prepared to march back to the rear areas, Captain Morrison appeared one final time. He looked at Sam with an expression that mixed respect and something close to awe. Corporal Hartley. 14 confirmed kills in 3 days of combat. 500+ yard shot with iron sights. Single-handedly broke a German Fallschirmjäger assault. You know what that means? No, sir. It means you're a legend. By tonight, every man in the division will know your name. By next week, Stars and Stripes will be writing articles about you. The hillbilly with the old rifle who outfought the Wehrmacht's best. Sam looked uncomfortable. I just want to go home, sir. Don't we all, son? Don't we all? The legend of Sam Hartley spread through the U.S. Army like wildfire through dry timber. By the time his platoon reached the rear areas for rest, soldiers from other units were coming to see the rifle, to meet the man, to hear the stories. Officers studied his techniques. Training sergeants asked him to demonstrate his shooting form. War correspondents requested interviews. Sam declined them all. He sat in a replacement depot tent, carefully cleaning the Springfield one more time, running the oilcloth along metal that had fired over 100 rounds in 72 hours and never once jammed, never once failed him. Around him, men celebrated their survival with contraband whiskey and loud laughter, but Sam remained apart, quiet, processing what he'd done. 14 men. 14 fathers, sons, brothers. 14 souls sent into the dark by a rifle that people had called outdated. He didn't feel proud. He felt tired. Russo found him there as evening fell. The corporal had cleaned up, shaved, tried to look human again after 3 days of hell. He sat down beside Sam without asking permission. You okay? Yeah. You don't look okay. Sam set down the cleaning rod. I killed 14 men in 3 days, Russo. With a rifle everyone said was obsolete. And you know what the worst part is? What? It was easy. Not physically, that was hard. But the decision? Finding them in my sights and pulling the trigger? That was the easiest thing I've ever done. Because every time I didn't shoot, one of you died instead. So I shot. Again and again. And now? He fell silent. Now you're wondering what that makes you, Russo finished quietly. Sam nodded. It makes you a soldier. A damn good one. Maybe the best I've ever seen. Russo lit a cigarette, offered one to Sam who refused as always. You know what I thought about when I saw you work? I thought about my kid brother. He's 17, thinks he's gonna join up next year, be a hero. And I realized, if Joey ends up over here, I want him in a foxhole next to someone like you. Someone who doesn't waste bullets or lives. Someone who makes every shot count because he understands that behind every rifle is a man who wants to go home. Your brother should stay in school, Sam said. He should. But he won't. None of them will. This war's got years left in it. Russo took a long drag. But maybe, just maybe, your way of fighting will save some of them. You proved something these last 3 days, Hartley. You proved that it's not about how modern your weapon is, or how many rounds you can spit out. It's about the man behind the weapon. His skill. His calm. His willingness to do what needs doing. Lieutenant Barnes appeared at the tent entrance. His head wound had been stitched and bandaged, making him look like a mummy. Hartley. The colonel wants to see you. Sam stood, slinging the Springfield. What for? To pin a silver star on your chest, probably. And to ask you to train other men in your methods. Precision marksman tactics, they're calling it. Turn you into an instructor. I'd rather stay with the platoon, sir. Barnes smiled. I told them you'd say that. So here's the compromise, you stay with us, but you take on 2 or 3 guys as students. Teach them what you know. Pass it down. Deal? Sam thought about that. Teaching meant his grandfather's lessons would spread, would survive even if he didn't. Meant other men might learn to make every shot count, might save their squads the way he'd saved his. Deal. The Silver Star ceremony happened the next day, a brief affair in a muddy field, with the division commander reading citations in a voice raw from shouting orders. Sam stood at attention while they pinned the medal to his uniform, while photographers took pictures, while other soldiers applauded. He felt nothing but the weight of the Springfield on his shoulder. After the ceremony, they gave him 48 hours of leave. He spent it sleeping, eating hot food, and writing a letter to his grandfather back in Tennessee. The letter was simple, direct. Use the old Springfield you taught me on. Worked just fine. The boys here say it's outdated, but it did the job. Thinking of you. Thinking of home. Thinking about what you said about making every shot matter. I understand now. Thank you, Sam. He never mentioned the kills. His grandfather would understand without being told. Numbers were for the army. The real lesson was deeper, carved into his soul, that precision was a form of respect, that one perfect shot honored the seriousness of taking a life more than 100 careless ones, that the old ways endured because they were true. When Sam returned to his platoon, 3 young soldiers were waiting, volunteers who wanted to learn from the legend. Sam looked at their eager faces and saw his younger self, raw and untested, believing that war was something you could prepare for. First lesson, he said, gesturing to a distant target. Forget everything you think you know about shooting fast. We're going to shoot slow. And we're going to shoot right. Over the following weeks, as the 28th Division prepared for its next deployment, Sam trained his students. He taught them to read wind, to control breathing, to see the patterns in enemy movement. He taught them that every bullet carried the weight of a life, the life you were taking, and the lives you were protecting. Not all of them understood. But some did. The war continued, as wars do. The Hurtgen Forest claimed thousands more lives before the Allies finally broke through. Sam and his platoon fought in Belgium, Luxembourg, across the Rhine into Germany itself. The Springfield continued to speak with deadly accuracy, sometimes twice a day, sometimes once a week, always when it mattered most. Sam survived the war. Came home to Tennessee in late 1945, the Silver Star in a drawer, the Springfield in a gun case, his grandfather waiting on the porch of the old mountain house. They didn't talk much. Didn't need to. But that evening, as the sun set over the Cumberland Mountains, Sam's grandfather handed him a box of cartridges and nodded toward the woods. "Buck been eating my garden. You up for it?" Sam loaded the Springfield, feeling the familiar weight, the balance that had saved his life and the lives of his brothers half a world away. They walked into the woods together, grandson and grandfather, connected by blood and bullets and the understanding that some skills transcend time. 300 yards into the forest, the buck appeared, a magnificent 12-pointer, cautious and alert. Sam raised the Springfield. Breathed. Held. Squeezed. One shot. The buck fell cleanly, dead before it hit the ground. His grandfather nodded approval. Still got it. Never lost it, Sam said quietly. They field-dressed the deer and carried it home together, and that night the family ate well. And if Sam's mother noticed that her son was quieter than before, that his eyes held shadows that hadn't been there 2 years ago, she said nothing. She just squeezed his hand across the dinner table and thanked God he'd come home. The old Springfield hung above the fireplace for the rest of Sam's life. When he died in 1984, at age 62, his children wanted to donate it to a museum. His grandson, named after his great-great-grandfather, asked if he could keep it instead. "It's just an old rifle," Sam's daughter said. "No," the boy replied, running his hand along the worn stock. "It's proof that old-fashioned doesn't mean obsolete. That precision matters. That one person, doing one thing perfectly, can change everything." He was right. The Springfield Model 1903 had been designed in 1903, adopted as the U.S. military's standard rifle, and largely replaced by the M1 Garand by 1944. It was, by every technical measure, outdated. But in the hands of Sam Hartley, a Tennessee hillbilly who'd been mocked for clinging to his grandfather's weapon, it became the most effective rifle in the Hurtgen Forest. 14 confirmed kills in 3 days. Battles turned. Lives saved. Legends born. Not because the rifle was special, but because the man behind it understood a truth that modern warfare often forgot, that accuracy was a form of mercy, that every bullet mattered, that the old ways endured because they were built on foundations of skill and respect and the willingness to do hard things right. The world moved on. Automatic weapons became standard. Firepower eclipsed precision. Technology advanced. But somewhere in the mountains of Tennessee, Sam Hartley's descendants still learned to shoot with bolt-action rifles, still learned to make every shot count, still carry forward the lesson that was carved in blood in a German forest 80 years ago. It's not the weapon. It's the warrior. If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video.